Cool. All right, so let's get into the topics that we want to discuss.
Sure.
Obviously, you're in the content business, so you know a little bit about content. I know you wanted to talk about how to prepare to write. What are your thoughts on that?
I think one, the decision of, what am I trying to achieve with my content? I know that's something you talk about all the time. I think whether it's content that's going to be written by yourself, by somebody on your internal staff, but especially if it's going to be written by a freelancer, somebody you don't have a direct existing relationship with, putting that kind of author briefing together, and that should be a package, is critical. And like I said, even if you're doing the writing yourself, you should know kind of who your audience is. Men, women, older, younger. What do they care about? And so, our recommendation, because we get this question, as you'd imagine, we get this question a lot, like, okay, I know I need content, but where do I start, or how do I start? And so where we always start is, listen, first understand who your audience is, what they're gonna want. We're always a big fan of all the various SEO tools, right? Doing the keyword competitor analysis and keyword gap analysis, because that's still crucial, right? Every once in a while I hear keywords are dead, or we don't care about keywords. That's not what we see. That's not what we see our clients caring about. So keywords are still critical. So knowing what the audience is and what they want to read about, and then from there, understanding what keywords to use, and then just figuring out how to kind of convey all that information to the author. Great things to remember are examples, right? Like I run into this a lot, where somebody will come up to me at a trade show or something, and they'll be like, yeah, but we've got such a unique style. I can't imagine that your authors will be able to pick that up. And you'd be surprised, right? I think if you can give our authors examples,
right? Hey,
here's an example of kind of stuff we like, here's examples of stuff we really don't like, or here are phrases we don't like. The authors pick that up pretty quickly. They're writing in all different ways. They're ghostwriters, which is really a particular skill, right? They're writing in all different ways and styles for lots of different clients. They understand SEO because so many of our clients care about SEO. So I think it's super critical that you kind of think through, how can I get these authors kind of the right set of information so that they know what they're doing? Because, unfortunately we have this from time to time. A client will say, yeah, I just need a stock market update. Can tell me about what's happened in the last month in the stock market? And it's literally it's a 2-line set of instructions. And we've got plenty of authors who love stocks and know what's going on, and they write something, but you didn't give them much direction. And then they're like, oh no, I thought you were going to talk about,
right,
how well Google's been doing or Tesla's been doing. And like, well, you didn't say that. So think it through. The more instructions you give to the author, obviously the better they're going to do.
And I assume when you're asking somebody for a content request, like somebody's coming to you saying, I want content, there's a form they fill out that kind of templates the information that you guys need in order to meet their expectations, right?
We do, yeah. It's a big white, when you go to the Textbroker, if you're on the self-service side, there's a big white box, which is where you can tell the authors anything you want. And we do have kind of a sample template, and says, it would be really good if you kind of include this information. So we are giving them that guidance, and then they can always call client services, and we'd be happy to help them. Like, we're happy to review your first set of author instructions, just to kind of give you some feedback, guidance. But that's the most critical thing, and it makes sense, right? If you don't give the author good instructions, they're not going to give you what you want.
Right, and the array of topics, like you said, it just could be, drastic. Some of it's seasonal, some of it's, pandemic related, some of it's just like product descriptions, some of it's factual and doesn't change ever, it's evergreen.
Right.
So I guess you have different types of writers that excel in different areas, and you know how to funnel. How do you do that? How do you funnel the right content to the right people outside of just topic?
That's a good question, and a question we get a lot. So somebody will come up to us and say, I care, my company's all about health. How do I know I'm going to get the writers who know about health? And there's different ways to order on our platform. One is you can just kind of put it out to the crowd. Clients have to pick a category when they submit any assignment.
Right.
Health, finance, sports, automobiles, whatever. So let's think about it from an author perspective. If I'm an author on Textbroker and I'm ready to write something, if it's me, probably the first thing I'm going to do is go to the sports. We have like this big grid. So I'm going to go to the row that says sports,
right,
and I'm going to see a number. It's going to say like 8. If I click on that number 8, I'm going to see the 8 sports assignments. that, out of the thousands of assignments I could possibly do, I'm only allowed to pick one. So I'll see the 8 sports ones, and if I pick one, it kind of comes off the board, and I have it for about 24 hours.
Right.
So some of it is self-selecting. Our authors don't want to pick up an assignment where they don't know the topic, or it's going to take them forever to do the research.
Right.
They're kind of backing into how much am I getting paid per hour, even
Right.
though they get paid per word. One way is just self-selecting, and then we have all sorts of ways to search for authors. And then you could reach out for a very specific author and say, hey, I only want you to do this because I've seen your background or you've done work for me in the past. Getting that author who knows what they're talking about is critical, and it's pretty easy at Textbroker.
That's cool. Awesome. All right. So I write a lot, as you know.
Yes.
My style is I don't know if you read a lot when I write, very short and to the point.
Right.
I assume you guys collect a lot of data about your writers and what they write. But do you get the back channel of how that content is performing on the analytics side from the client's website? Are you able to get that information, or?
We would love to get that information, and we've got some case studies and stuff where clients have been generous enough to kind of share that with us. But no, we kind of hand over the written word to you. There's times with like managed service, they're like, oh, we want you to post it on our WordPress and put a photo, whatever. But the vast majority of what we do, we deliver the written word, and then it's up to our clients to put it on their website and make it look good.
So how do you know what works then?
We don't have any kind of tracking system or something unless they come back and they tell us, hey, I did this content, I kind of published your content and my traffic's up 20%.
So how do you know what works? Like what to keep doing versus what not to? I mean, obviously client feedback is one of those things. And that's the only metric, I guess the only metric you really have is client feedback. So after the content's submitted, there's something like a loop where you're asking for feedback on it, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, we have a lot of clients who don't tell us and don't seem to want to tell us.
Well, even
if we ask,
right.
they kind of feel like it's proprietary,
right?
Which is fair enough. So, I think you have to go back to, I think people using Textbroker for the most part, they know SEO and they have their own strategies and they're very much measuring whether it's working or not.
Right.
And that's another thing that's been kind of interesting to see. I see it more with big clients because it's just easier to follow them. But we'll have clients who they'll write a ton of stuff and then we'll see that they've, the next 2 months it's much lower, and I might have a chance to talk to them, what happened. And a lot of times it's like, we were testing something out, we wanted to see if it worked. We're taking a pause, assuming it does work, we'll come back and order more. So I think our clients are very much focused on whether it's working or not. We don't require them to tell us, they don't have to tell us as a result, only if they choose to. But no, I feel like our clients are measuring us pretty carefully. The other really interesting thing to see, and this hasn't happened in a long time, but like Panda and Penguin.
Yep.
Right? So Panda comes and like literally overnight, not like a week later, like within a day or two, just the overall volume of kind of orders that we saw went up, and that continued for a long time. Then it was like a year later, I think, Penguin, and this was kind of interesting, and I think to the extent that we didn't even realize this, but we had clients who were ordering content from us not because they wanted content that was going to go on their own website, but they wanted content for third-party websites just to link back to themselves, right? And Penguin overnight said, Google's like, we can tell if this is a spammy link and if this content is not so good. And listen, people were ordering some of that not so good content from Textbroker, first ones to admit it. And so, again, not a week later, overnight, one of our largest clients who was using us in that way, they stopped. They shifted to much higher quality. We rate our authors between 2 stars and 5 stars based on the quality of the writing. They had been doing a ton of 2-star stuff because, again, this was not content that was going on anybody's actual website. It was just these websites that were built for Google. And so overnight, they're like, okay, that Penguin, that doesn't work anymore. And so they went much higher quality, but much lower volume.
Interesting.
So those are the kind of things we can see, sometimes overnight, sometimes over years. But there's definitely been changes in kind of what smart SEOs are trying to do with content.
Interesting. Or have you adapted the way your 2-star writers, are you trying to make your 2-star writers 5-star writers, or it's not, you have different price points for different types of clients, I guess?
Yeah, on the author side, we pay per word, right? So a 2-star writer makes a lot less than a 5-star writer per word. I think we're the only company I know of that does this. We're very big on quality assurance. So part of what we're doing is we're constantly reviewing what our authors are writing for our clients after the fact. So that's not necessarily going to help the client for that particular assignment, but it's kind of a quality control, right? And we have it's a one strike thing, right? You can't have a bad day, because if somebody's paying for 4-star quality, you have to deliver 4-star quality every time if you're a 4-star author. So in doing that quality assurance, we're not just these stern overlords trying to keep our authors down. It's in our best interest to have authors move up, because they become more valuable. They're going to stick with us longer. They're going to make more money. As you can imagine, the long-term trend in content is higher and higher and higher quality, right? That's been going on for 10 years. I don't see that stopping. So it's very much in our best interest to have those folks move up. So we don't just say you're still a 4-star. We spend like 10 minutes reviewing an author's we kind of random, well, it's not random, but we kind of pick assignments that we know should be looked at, and we spend about 10 minutes, and we're trying to give them really detailed feedback. Hey, your comma usage is not so great. Here's a link to a blog post we wrote about comma usage that should help you. Hey, you're using too much filler language. Here's an article we wrote about action verbs and being much more, So we're really trying to help these authors move up the curve, and that's been rewarding too. Again, everything's in thousands, but thousands of authors have been promoted up through the ranks. Now, can a 2-star writer ever become a 5-star writer? I'm sure it's happened maybe once or twice, I don't know, but being a professional writer is not only kind of something you learn, I think that's also just kind of a talent and a skill that you have. And I think if you were ever considered by us to be a 2-star writer, that would be really difficult to become a 5-star writer.
Are those ratings manual, or there's an algorithm behind it?
No, it's manual. Yeah,
okay.
So that's why I'm saying, I think other companies who are in this space, or an Upwork or somebody like that, they're just letting other clients do the ratings, and you get kind of a collective rating. But what we found in content is so subjective.
Yep.
And I don't know how, let's say we have 2 furniture companies, and they both want product descriptions, right? Fairly simple stuff. And so if we showed one furniture company the product descriptions, from another furniture company, we tend not to do this because we don't own the copyright, we give it away. But the first company, oh, that's terrible. I hate, those are, the same exact company, they need the same exact type of content, and they have 2 very, very different ideas of what's good and what's bad.
Right.
So no, we think, letting the crowd kind of give you ratings, whether it's eBay sellers or eBay buyers, that seems to me makes perfect sense. But in content, we don't trust that. So no, we've got human beings, real people in our Las Vegas office. It's kind of an interesting job. All they do all day is read what our authors have written and try to dig into it and give them feedback, and in the end determine whether they should sort of stay at the rating they are, or hopefully move up or move down.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I write at Search Engine Roundtable and Search Engine Land, and I write the same story. Sometimes I'll write the same story on both sites in totally different ways.
Right.
One might be more thin, I guess, and one might be more formulated but longer. And sometimes I get people coming to me, I love the way you write it on this site versus that site, and somebody else comes over, I love the way you write it on this site versus that site.
Yep.
So you have to know the audience, I guess, and write for that audience.
That goes back to my very first point. That's so critical.
What are your top tips for training somebody to write well, I guess? Or it's just hard to say, it depends on the person, obviously. But
it depends on the person, and like I mentioned, we have these author forums. And it's really interesting to kind of, a lot of times somebody will be like, I'm the newbie, can somebody help me out? I'm not quite sure what they mean here, or what they want.
Right.
And that's why we love to have our authors helping each other, because they can really do that. But yeah, this is going to be such self-serving advice, but I would say if you're an author or you want to get better, signing up for Textbroker and taking some assignments, because like I said, we're not just going to be you're a 4-star writer and not talk to you again. We're rating you on a consistent basis,
right?
And especially when you're a newer author, we do rate you more often, and our sole intent is just to make you better. But you don't have to. I guess you don't have to do that.
I was going to lead up to that. I'm why don't you offer a service that rates rate my content type of service and rate my authors, so that we can improve our own internal, instead of obviously an outsourcing service, but maybe a service for people who have their own writers to make them better, kind of like education.
That's an interesting idea, because I think
I
I
want a
mentioned.
commission, please. No, I'm sure.
Well, and I mentioned this, that we of course we produce a ton of content for ourselves because we're a
Right.
believer in content marketing and SEO. But yeah, over the years we've created so much content for our authors about how to become a better writer, and we have something called Textbroker University, and so. And again, that you don't even have to sign up for Textbroker. You can just kind of come to our website and look at our author blog, and it's all about becoming a better writer. Because
Right.
what else are we talking about, right?
I should read that. Yeah.
And that's totally free. You don't even have to give us an email address or anything. So no, there's lots of places where I think you can get advice. I'd say remember that our advice though is going to be for a specific kind of writing, which is what the companies who are focused on content marketing and SEO want, right? Like if you're trying to write the next great American novel, you do not want to be following our advice for how to write. So that goes back to it too. Like there's different types of writing, and I think they require different kind of training and learning what's appropriate.
All right, and then any advice would you have for somebody who's looking to outsource content writing? Obviously, they hire you, everything will be perfect. But if they happen to find somebody on Google that's not you, and they run into an issue, what's your advice around how to vet those people?
Yeah, no, and like I said, self-service, we're not really that involved. And so, listen, we have lots of people who try it, and for whatever reason, they're not happy. And again, they don't want to reach out to us and get some help. So I don't want to say that we're perfect. On the managed service side, hopefully we're perfect, because there's a huge kind of onboarding process where we do some pilots things and make sure we really have it before we scale up. But no, I'd say one of the things that's, I was just getting this question the other day. One of the things that's interesting is like that decision, should I hire somebody internally? Should I find somebody on Craigslist who at least lives in my town? Should I use a service like Textbroker? And I think some of that is based on like how really expert does it have to be,
right,
and how tied into your company, and two is what's the level of scale that you need, right? So there are a lot of companies that have an internal writing team of 4 or 5 people,
right,
but they still use us twice a year because they have some big project and they don't want to hire 10 people for a month and then fire them and then hire 10, right? So I think making that decision and managing kind of an outsourced team or an outsourced set of writers, it goes back to what we talked about with the instructions. But I think the second thing is, and I think this is a big issue we have on the self-service side, is remember that any author, what they write should be considered a draft, right? Michael Lewis doesn't kind of write something and suddenly it's published. Or somebody who writes for a newspaper. There's always an editorial review process.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how many people kind of don't know that. So if you're using, whether it's using Textbroker self-service or you found somebody on Craigslist or whatever, be prepared that if you want it to be good, and maybe you don't care, but hopefully you want it to be good, there should be an editorial review process. And if you're not very good at that editorial review, then you need to find not only an author, you need to find somebody, could be your spouse, whatever, but somebody who knows how to edit.
Do you have an editorial review process alone? If you have you don't want to hire out an editor, you just want to write yourself and you want to get an editor to review it, you offer that as a service?
We'll do that for kind of existing clients. We don't offer that as just like a standalone service where you can say, hey, I wrote one, like you've got something you just wrote, you're like, hey, Textbroker, will you give it a quick read through? It's not, again, another good business idea potentially.
I don't know. But I'm sure you thought of all these things.
Yeah, because we tend to do better on scale. So absolutely, if and I keep using eBay, but they allow us to use their name. eBay kind of not only needs it written well, they need it reviewed. They have all this compliance and style guide stuff, right? You can't say guarantee, you can't say free. So if it's a big enough project, it doesn't have to be that big. Our minimum is like $1,000 a month. If you're going to spend over $1,000 a month, we can do what's called managed service, and then we take care of the writing, the editing, the compliance, the style guide, the whole soup to nuts.
Interesting, cool, awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here and sharing this information. Can you tell people how they can learn more about you and follow you and so forth?
Sure, yeah. So if you're interested in Textbroker, the easiest thing to do is go to www.textbroker.com. For me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, which I'll admit is a little bit of a strange thing. It's more pictures of me doing stuff as opposed to, necessarily about content writing.
Right.
And then Textbroker ourselves. Textbroker's got a great Facebook page. We've got our own Twitter, LinkedIn pages. So any of those ways you can either reach out to me or reach out to us. We're happy to help.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.